Bidondi for TruthRadioShow.com. We are at a Rhode Island Oath Keepers meeting here, and today we're going to have two candidates, one for Congress, one for Senator here in the state of Rhode Island. Salvatore Caiozzo, he's running for Congressional District 2 against Jim Langevin, the current congressman. And also we have State Rep Bobby Nardolillo running for U.S. Senator against the current Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. Two Patriots against two Tyrants. But also we're going to interview these people, ask them questions, and also if you're interested in joining the Oath Keepers, it doesn't matter if you live around anywhere in the country, folks, go to oathkeepers.org. It's a great institution, great organization for anybody that honors their oath, especially military and police and firefighters who took a sworn oath to defend the Constitution, and they also take civilian members as well. But oathkeepers.org, Dan Bidondi, TruthRadioShow.com.
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Most of you guys know me here. I think all of you know me here, don't you? There we go. Anyway, you know why I'm here. I'm running for Congress in the 2nd District against Langevin. And we know what's been going on with Langevin, don't we?
Yes.
Lingering Jim.
Lingering, I like that. I like that. He's actually got a good video up about that. What, the Wizard of Oz or something like that? Is that it? We're gonna have to see that. Anyway, I'm here just to let you guys know that I stand behind everything you guys are doing. And we need our liberty, and Rhode Island needs to get back to where it was. I mean, we have a great history of being the rebels of the country. I don't know what happened to it, but we need to get back to it. So, the way I see it is, it starts here. Just like it started way back in the day in a small tavern with a few people just meeting up and figuring out how to get their country to where it needed to be and away from the tyranny from England. Well, now we have the progressive tyranny.
That's right.
Can't let that happen. So anyway, this is a call to arms at this point as far as I'm concerned. I need each and every one of you for help. I mean, I need ideas. Anybody has questions, I'd love to answer them for you and actually enlighten me in anything else that could be going on. So go ahead and shoot. Anybody?
Anybody any questions?
No?
Sal, you have a big stand, you're a big supporter in helping the veterans. Could you kind of promote that a little bit on what you're hoping to do yet in the Congress?
Well, quite simply, I mean, I'm a veteran as well.
Yes.
I'm a disabled vet. I see what they've been doing to us. And I also see what the young men and women that are coming back home are coming to absolutely nothing. And, you know, I keep on always hearing the military budget, which is enormous. We have a very strong military. However, we have to think of these people when they come home. That's when they really need it. I'm tired of the 22 suicides a day, which I don't even think that's statistics anymore. At this point, it's probably going to be even more. I'm tired of seeing all that. I'm tired of seeing, you know, things going on at the VA where there's actually been people who, there was just something on the news the other day where there was a nurse that was laughing at a veteran that was dying. I mean, this is ridiculous. These people stood up. They stepped up for every single one of us, for our liberties in this country. And at the end of the day, we just, you know, throw them over to the side and just put them to the curb? No, absolutely not.
Died just waiting to get an appointment.
It's ridiculous. It really is. And that's something that I want to put a stop to. In fact, I want to put a stop to it where perhaps we can get tied in with TRICARE and get people to go out and see, you know, private physicians. It doesn't just necessarily have to be with the VA.
Right.
The VA should stay, though, for research.
Yeah.
Because nobody gets what a soldier does. Nobody.
Right.
You know, their PTSD is totally different from the PTSD in somebody being in a car accident.
Right.
Certain illnesses that we end up getting are totally different than somebody out in the civilian world. You know, you got to remember, you go to a lot of places where you're going to catch something. You come back home, nobody knows what's going on. So we do need that. Myself, I used the War-Related Illnesses Clinic. There's 4 of them in the country. I'd like to see more of them. I went to one of them, the one down in East Orange, New Jersey. 3 days, they took care of me. I was the only patient there for 3 days. They went, you know, head to toe with me. So that one I have to say is wonderful. We need more.
Now, another question. For over a decade at least that I could count of, congressmen here in Rhode Island have constantly onslaughted the Second Amendment. As congressman, what would you do to protect and preserve the Second Amendment and try to reestablish the full Second Amendment here in the state of Rhode Island?
Well, to begin with, the Second Amendment can't be touched. It's part of the Bill of Rights. I mean, the law, the way it was written
Shall not be
and stated, it says shall not be infringed, and it can't really be touched. I mean, you can't do a constitutional convention to get rid of the Bill of Rights, which are the first 10 amendments. Those can't be touched.
The solution is shall not be infringed.
And that's it, basically. And the other solution is we need to enforce the laws to make sure that criminals don't get away with what they're getting away with.
Accountability.
You know, and it's that simple.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's the criminals doing the crime, not the
Innocent.
honest, innocent people. It's the criminals that are doing the crime.
Well, yeah,
They're the ones causing
yeah.
the problems, not the
Yeah,
honest
and
civilian.
the innocent or the honest should not have to pay for that.
Oh, one other question too. It's plugging Rhode Island, road map Rhode Island, roadworks Rhode Island, the tolls, all that. You know, the 9 yards of what they're trying to do. You know, eminent domain. You know, the tolls, the gantries, and all that. As congressman, I know you deal more on a federal level, but as congressman, what would you do for the state of Rhode Island to try to attack that? To try to get rid of these things that nobody here in Rhode Island wants.
Well, roadmap, which is HUD. To begin with, I just was at one thing for Situate the other day. I've been to the other one in Exeter. Actually, Exeter, I think they stopped it completely. Good for them. Listen, this HUD plan, or this roadmap as we want to call it, and now I think they're calling it something else, Rhode Island Rise or something, I think.
Agenda 21.
They're always changing names on it.
Fluffy.
That is only going to bankrupt these small towns. I mean, these small towns do not, most of them don't have sewage. They don't have the police departments. For instance, Situate uses Gloucester for a police department, but yet they want to put in this affordable living.
Right.
I don't want to talk bad about people because, I mean, people come from all steps of life, but when you start getting people from the city moving into those areas, into affordable housing, you know what they're going to bring with them.
Mm-hmm.
And these small towns are not equipped. They'll go bankrupt.
And what
So-
about the gantries and the tolls and all that?
The gantries, as far as I'm concerned, and from what I know, and I've talked to people at the Highway Administration, the Federal Highway Administration, they're not very, very happy. And I know we're going to lose federal funding because of this. I've still been waiting. I've been talking to different people there. This has been ongoing since last year that I was talking with people down there. And basically they're just on a wait and see type of thing. Because you know what's going to end up happening. Once the first truck gets tolled, the state's going to get sued.
Yep.
When that happens, then the courts are going to say, well, you're going to have to toll everybody.
Yeah, that's part of the plan.
But then and only then, with tolls, the way it works is during the building of a highway. So how can you get away with that? It's somewhat bothersome. And I really believe that Rhode Island's going to lose a lot of federal funding because of that.
Mhm.
Other than that, I mean, look, guys, I'm going to be truthful with you. All of yous in here know me. I'm a scrapper. I'm not just going to sit back and just nod my head to everything and everybody. If I see something I don't like that's not good for Rhode Island and not good for my constituents, I'm going to stand up against it. So, this is what I have to offer.
Great.
Very good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Randy and the Oath Keepers for allowing me just a few moments to speak about my campaign for U.S. Senate. But we have to address the realities. The past 8 years, the world is spinning in the wrong direction. For the past 12 months, the new administration has begun to address these changes. I want to take part and be a leader for Rhode Island to bring those changes here. the needed changes that we need to progress our state. Unfortunately, Rhode Island suffers from broken leadership and poor representation. I think we can all agree for far too long the voices of Rhode Islanders haven't been heard, which ultimately means our needs are not being addressed. And as our next U.S. Senator, I promise to echo our frustrations and fight for our concerns and be a senator that we can be proud of. We need a senator who is a fighter, not only a fighter, but someone who represents our needs and in our future, someone who serves the people, someone who doesn't serve a party, someone who doesn't choose to fight in partisan politics, but chooses to be a pragmatic leader. I promise the time that I spend in Washington on our behalf is going to be to solve problems for us, to get answers, to bring things back that push our state forward. We've been stagnant as a state. We have 4 leaders who choose to represent a narrow representation of our needs. And that's why our state isn't moving forward. In Washington, we should be proud to know when we turn on C-SPAN that a leader is standing up there and offering speeches to individuals' needs, like our veterans, those who have fought for us, and our active service members who still fight for us. We need a leader who's going to stand up on the Senate floor and fight for those individuals. We're going through a tax reform now. This tax reform should be supported by our leadership. It's a step forward. Our country and state has been stagnant. Our leaders choose to cause more theatrics rather than be part of pushing our state forward. These reforms, at the end of the day, should be supported. They put more money in our pocket at the end of the week. They keep corporations here in our country to provide jobs, desperately needed jobs here in our country. These are things that are important, and a true leader would see the need for this rather than pushing their own agendas. I'm just a regular guy. I love to help people. I'm a 2-term state representative, and I ran for state representative because there was a lack of leadership and representation in my district. I'm running for U.S. Senate because I feel the same way. We have a U.S. Senate seat that doesn't represent our needs. And I look to you in this room and throughout the state, from Woonsocket to Westerly. I let folks know that I'm there to listen. There's been a tremendous disconnect between us as the citizens who live here in our state and our leaders. For the past 2 terms, that's 12 years, Rhode Island has continued to struggle every single day under the leadership and representation of Sheldon Whitehouse. I ask you in this room, is that fair?
No.
No. Is that the type of leader we want representing us in Washington?
No way.
Then we need to send him a message in 2018.
Bye-bye.
We need to let Sheldon Whitehouse know we deserve better.
Exactly.
And united as Rhode Islanders, we're going to show him that in November. And I greatly appreciate your time for me to speak to you about my mission for us. It's a passion for me to serve the folks of Rhode Island, and I'm going to bring the storm. We need a storm. We need a fierce individual who is fearless, and I promise you, I am that storm, and I am not going to stop until we unseat Sheldon Whitehouse and return the U.S. Senate seat back to where it belongs, and that's serving the great folks of Rhode Island. Thank you.
That's right.
Yeah. I had a question. Now as we all know about the corruption with the VA veterans here in Rhode Island and all over the country not getting the benefits they deserve. Here in Rhode Island, how many homeless veterans we get out in the streets? Now, as Senator, What would you do to try to help that, to try to restore hope back into these veterans? Because as we know, the suicide rate's through the roof too, with the active and non-active military too. But how would you restore this hope for these veterans around, to get them off the streets, to get them the compensation and the medical help that they deserve, and go after the corruption in the VA?
I'm glad you brought that up, because I've been out on the food truck, and to be able to witness firsthand the simplicity of just offering food and a little bit of prayer and a little bit of counsel and listening to the individuals. The homeless rate here in Rhode Island is overwhelming. And I have talked to some of the veterans who have served, and I've had conversations about the time that they served. It's about hope, and it's about reestablishing, as the gentleman said before, Sal said before, the time spent away fighting so that we're able to be here and have our freedoms. We should be fighting as hard and harder for them to get reestablished, because when you come back, the resettlement into a non-military life is shown to be very difficult, and it's very stressful, and there's undue burdens that are put on the individuals who fight for us emotionally. We need to be there as a strong support and counsel, and we don't see that, and it's a true injustice to those who have fought for us. So we need somebody who's prepared to do that, who's gutsy and can say, listen, budgetarily, this is where the funds need to go. We're looking at a serious epidemic here on many different levels, and it needs to be addressed, and it's not.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have any questions? Yes.
What would you do about affordable health care?
So I don't believe the federal government should be taking care of a national outlook at healthcare. I think each state should be responsible for the own needs of the individuals in their state. For instance, those who live in Rhode Island have certain needs that those in Arizona don't have. So we shouldn't be in a cookie-cutter style of healthcare. We should be at a competitive standpoint. I think it should be treated like almost like you're shopping for your car insurance almost. So you're having the same type of philosophy where you have that competition, and we don't have that. And I've actually talked to several individuals who I was very surprised that needed certain physicians that were recommended, and when they went there to go sit in, prior to that, they asked, do you have insurance? Of course, all physicians will ask that prior to the appointment, and they said, I'm sorry, we don't take your coverage. And they went to the next physician that was recommended, and the next one, and by then they're out of state going to a medical physician, because within their own state they can't get the coverage, and they can't obviously afford to pay out of pocket, which is, it's tremendously unfortunate, and it's at the point of being almost obnoxious that you're sick, you need care, and you're in a really difficult spot.
That's why we need to open it up to
Competition.
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 Yeah.
That's what
I know that a lot of people would
creates
buy
quality.
health insurance was affordable. I came back, I wasn't feeling well, I went to the doctor, they said basically, I think they found out that I do a VA coverage, so they there was no tax credits for me, and it would basically be like $800 a month, plus $2,000 deductible and 20% after that.
Right.
So right now the procedure that my physician recommended basically costs $4,000.
Right.
I don't have $2,000 in my pocket and another 20% of the other two.
Competition creates quality.
You're absolutely
So
correct.
It's really tough. I mean, I'm willing to pay, but what I calculate is that 25% I give it in taxes to the state and federal government, and then I probably give close to another 30%, maybe more, to health insurance. So where does it leave me paying my bills?
Government shouldn't be involved.
Homeowners
Competition
insurance.
is necessity here.
You have homeowners insurance, I mean, cell phone, electricity, I mean, it's
And going to be able to buy your insurance, I've talked to, maybe two children households, it's $1,500 to $1,800 a month.
Ridiculous.
It's tremendously expensive because none of the costs go down. I mean, we still have to clothe our children, feed our children. There are other responsibilities aside from this, and healthcare is tremendously important because when you get sick, You need that. The coverage, it needs to be there, but you need to be able to afford to not only do that, but live.
Government shouldn't be involved. Doesn't
You're
have to be
absolutely
involved.
right.
Look what happened to the schools, what happened when government got involved there. It erased all competition.
And it's a cookie cutter. Yep, it's a cookie cutter education. The children are not being challenged. And even a lot of the opposition comes from the educators. The educators want to be able to expand and be able to work with the students on a whole different level. And it's
the real teachers want to teach, the rest are too incompetent to compete.
Or they're content.
Or content.
Because it makes it easier for them to do their job.
And last question, I have to throw this out. As we know, we a lot of mass shootings lately and all that, and progressives and foreign international groups and corporations, the United Nations as well, is all trying to jump on this to push strict gun control to eventually try to eliminate the Second Amendment. As a senator, what would you do to protect the Second Amendment and everybody's right to keep and bear arms that shall not be infringed?
Sure, thank you. And as I said before, being a two-term state representative, I've been a huge supporter of the Second Amendment. And the realities which the progressives are not willing to accept is that a lot of this is mental health issues. And ultimately, someone who is mentally ill doesn't need a firearm, doesn't need a weapon. And we need to address those situations, okay? The laws that are on the books, they exist, okay? To create more laws that criminals just do not follow does not make sense. We're creating more laws, and what that does to us as law-abiding citizens, it puts us in a more uncomfortable situation, okay? Because these individuals who are criminals for a reason. They continually break the law. To create more laws puts burden on us, and I will continue to fight as I have, as a state representative. I'm going to take it to the national level because this is common sense. It's absolute common sense. A lot of these shootings that we've seen, most of these shootings that we've seen,
gun-free zone.
Correct, but on top of that, the individuals have mental health
and
issues.
they're on psychotropic drugs, which goes to the pharmaceutical companies that partially to blame for this as well.
But do you,
Thank
don't you think there is also a possibility that if somebody knows who you are and they don't like you, it could turn into the Salem witch hunt where they actually tell you that you have a mental illness and you don't. So then how do you get around that?
So
because then you have interference where someone probably isn't, or a person on a no-fly list that maybe they got flagged by someone because somebody in another town that was in the police didn't like somebody and they flagged them on a list.
Right. That's
so
why
how do you prevent
no
that
infringement is the answer.
Yeah, but how do you do that when it comes to,
ultimately, we need to take the first appropriate step. And I don't think that we have done that. We've built on excuses and built on fear. Lack of appropriate knowledge, and that is a continuation. It's viral, that you keep putting out the same poor message rather than the facts and the realities. So I think if you have level-headed individuals who you're able to have there and say, these are the issues, these are the concerns, rather than going to the hyper level. It's always to that far level where it's not a common sense conversation. Unfortunately, we need the first step, and then from there we can make the adjustments like you're saying, because we're already in a forward positive messaging is really what it is, and we need to educate society on the realities rather than constantly contest with false information.
Gun-free zones are the problem. No infringement is the solution.
Yeah, because they skipped it and go right up to the upper instead of going through the whole process, which is what we seem to do a lot in Rhode Island. So I'm curious, because do you not have another person that you're running against? Like you have is there a libertarian running as well?
There is another Republican. Yes, there is a Republican.
I'm curious about that.
Another Republican announced, and he is announced as of last week his platform and issues and concerns. I'm not 100% sure on, because he hasn't really fully identified them. They're more bullet points. To be a problem solver and a pragmatic thinker.
He's from where? He's from the northern end, right?
I believe he's from East Greenwich.
East Greenwich.
He's from East Greenwich. But I'm all about knowing what the problem is, but coming coming up with an answer to be able to present. So as of this point in time, there is a primary opponent, but we're not hearing too many answers. We're hearing, we know what the problems are. We live with them, but we need somebody who's going to step up and challenge them.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you.